Oh, don't do that.
Hello.
All right. Hey, we're live. Happy Thursday, everybody. We are Stephanie and David, your humble hosts, toxic relationship recovery experts, coming to you live every Thursday. And tonight's topic is about betrayal. Chances are, if you're watching this, you've experienced betrayal at some point in your life. And the issue with this, particularly where it sort of stunts our growth and moving forward, is that when your trust is betrayed, particularly in a romantic relationship, it can significantly damage your self-esteem, your ability to trust other people in future relationships, maybe even more importantly, your ability to trust yourself and the decisions that you make. Mm-hmm. So we're coming to you live tonight to kind of dive into this topic. As always, whether you're watching this live or as a replay, we encourage you to interact. We're here to serve, and we really want to give you the space, a safe space to receive the support. Take a look at these sometimes challenging and painful topics to really bring them to the light of awareness and begin to change what things mean for us, shift our perspectives, and really step into a place of empowerment where we go on to live our best lives, not in spite of the challenges that we faced, but because of them.
Now, betrayal, we don't just mean being cheated on, all right? So betrayal could be a lot of different factors. It could be that someone has told you something like a future they were going to, share with you, whether it was a friendship, whether it was selling a promise that you didn't get, someone, stole from you in general, manipulated, all of those things are acts of betrayal. So I wanted to make sure, because when we think about betrayal, I think a lot of people think automatically being cheated on. But of course, this is a much bigger thing than being cheated. Not that being cheated on is a major part of it, but it is definitely bigger than being just cheated on.
Yeah. So we're going to kind of go into this a little bit in depth, talk briefly about why these things happen, how this can ultimately affect you. And I think a lot of people are going to be able to resonate with this. And we'd love for you to share in the comments as well what your personal experience is with betrayal. More importantly, as we move through this, we're going to talk about how to reframe this and actually begin to heal, because there's a lot of you can probably resonate with. When you've been betrayed, it can affect everything, and you just sort of hold on to bitterness and resentment, and have a more narrowed view of what's possible for you in your life. And let's face it, a big part of a good life is having people around you that you feel safe with, who you can trust, people who have your best interests at heart, and you can allow yourself to be vulnerable with. So healing this and actually turning the corner is going to be a really important piece, and not just in the short term, but some tips on how you can effectively minimize the likelihood that you're going to be a victim of betrayal. Some of you might be thinking, well, there's no way to help that, right? People suck. You're always going to take your chances. But we're going to share some things with you that can probably change your perspective.
So who's ready to dive in? Dive in if you're ready to start exploring this really important topic. And again, if you are watching this as a replay, make sure you still comment as if you're watching it live. If you want David and I to comment or reply to your comment, make sure that you tag us. And of course, the more questions you ask, the more involved you are. This is your opportunity for Q&A. This is your chance to use our brains to help you gain the knowledge that you need in order to make these big changes for yourself and to heal, because that's what the big purpose of any of this is. But we want you to be able to heal and really create your best life. So I see a few people commenting dive in. That's really awesome.
Awesome.
So I'm going to start it off. So one of the reasons why you've been betrayed. Now, that's one of the biggest questions we ask ourselves. Why me? Why did this happen?
Why did they cheat?
Why was I betrayed? So one of the things that I find is that a lot of people will give too much too soon. Has that happened to anybody where they're automatically trusting someone that hasn't shown that they are trustworthy, and they are automatically believing that person? They feel, a little bit, what's the word? They're too understanding and too believing of the wrong people. Has that ever happened to anybody where they've given trust to people that never proved their trustworthiness or showed that they could be trustworthy?
Yeah, and let's take a step back, actually, and make sure we're all on the same page here. If you've actually been betrayed, and again, being cheated on in romantic relationships is one of the most common ones, and that may be sort of the central theme here. But share with us, be brave, share with us in the comments if you've been betrayed and what that looked like for you. We want to make sure, again, that we're on the same page. And I think what you'll find is that you're not alone. A lot of people have dealt with this before.
Mm-hmm.
But again, like Steph said, betrayal can take many forms. And we often ask the question, why? Look, this doesn't have to be rocket science. The reality is that the person who cheated on you just might be emotionally stunted. They're just not mature. They could have a whole range of personal issues. And again, we want to focus these trainings on what you can do, what you can change within yourself. So it's not just about rationalizing or justifying or even understanding other people's behavior.
I see a few people saying yes, that they gave too much or accepted too much too soon and put that trust in the wrong people.
Yeah. Another reason why people cheat or betray is because they have they're just dissatisfied with the situation that they're in. And again, this sort of, in my mind, ties into emotional immaturity.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing is, and this isn't just relevant in the realm of romantic infidelity, but some people are just opportunistic. Now, from my perspective as a guy, I know that a lot of times we're sort of stereotyped as, we've got two heads, but only enough blood to run one at a time, right? And
we've met a lot of those.
And that if, someone wants to hook up, they're hot, we're in a committed relationship. If it falls in our lap, so to speak, we're opportunistic. The reality is that is the case with a lot of people, not just men, but women also. But we want to share a message of hope as well, which we'll kind of tie up at the end with, but that's not everybody. But again, the simple fact is they could be emotionally immature. They've got other issues going on. They're opportunistic.
They're not able to communicate their feelings in the relationship that they're in. So maybe they would like something, there's something missing in the relationship. They're having issues already. And instead of talking it through and talking about it, they're now running to somebody else to get that emotional needs met, which again, that also goes into the sexual needs as well.
Yeah. And the reality is a lot of times too, where you feel that the commitment was betrayed, very often it could be that person wasn't actually committed in the first place. This is a tough pill to swallow.
That's a big one for a lot of our clients too, is where they felt that the relationship was more than what the other person later on said, where the other person was like, well, we weren't really committed then. And it was like, well, yeah, we were. We said we were together, but the other person is saying that, well, that wasn't real then, or we weren't actually in a committed relationship at that point.
Yeah. And let's also make a distinction here, because betrayal is one flavor of deceit.
Well, there's the actual act of having sex with someone for betrayal. And we're talking about intimate relationships. Then there's the emotional part. So it's not, it's not just the physical part, but sometimes people will emotionally cheat way before the physical stuff comes in. And then they might turn around and be like, well, that's not really cheating. That doesn't count. I can talk to people. You can't tell me who to talk to. Mm-hmm. But of course, if tables were turned, how would that person feel if you were speaking to someone the way that person is speaking to somebody?
Yeah, and I think what you said just there speaks to the influence of a level of perception. Right now, most of us would probably agree. You're married, your husband sleeps with somebody else, that's betrayal. As things go, that's pretty cut and dry. But let's also understand that betrayal is very often a matter of perception. Right? If there are two people who are unmatched, or they have different ways of perceiving things, the wife might go and talk to other guys purely innocently and with the desire to just be friendly, maybe they're guy friends, whatever, and the husband will feel betrayed because he perceives that as a violation. So the distinction is important, because if you order a cup of coffee and you say, cream and 2 sugars, and the waitress comes out and brings it to you and it's black coffee, that's not, would you consider that betrayal? So, there's something called betrayal trauma theory, and it kind of speaks to that. We feel betrayed when what we depended on basically violates our trust or our sense of well-being. Mm-hmm. Right? Very often for people who identify so much with being in a relationship, they invest so much emotionally, they depend so much on their partner for example, the emotional stability, right? That of course they should rely on themselves for. Mm-hmm. When that, and it could be anything. It could be outright cheating, or it could be just, looking at a hot girl as she walks by. that feeling of betrayal is dependent a lot on that level of perception.
Well, and I'm seeing here, I was betrayed through my partner when he was spending a lot of time with another woman. And that's another thing too. I mean, when that intimacy is gone and you feel like someone's being intimate with someone else, it doesn't have to be sexual intimacy, just that emotional intimacy. When we're feeling like we're missing out on that connection with our significant other, because now they're telling somebody else all of their hopes and dreams, all their frustrations, all their stresses, instead of coming to us, there is definitely that feeling also of like, why couldn't they trust me? I'm their partner. Why are they talking to me about it? Why are they talking to somebody else? So you have that. Then, of course, what you were saying before, which I think is also a big problem, is where somebody automatically thinks someone is betraying them by checking out or finding somebody else, seeing the attractiveness in somebody else because of their own wounds that they have not healed. I mean, realistically, we're all human beings. Do we notice people that are attractive? I would think so. I mean, again, that's pretty a normal thing to notice when people are attractive. The difference, of course, is noticing that they're attractive and then trying to talk to them and have a relationship with them. Two different things. One, notice like a nice painting that you would notice versus, hey, I want to get their number and hook up.
Right. And again, look, there are, like I said, instances where it's pretty cut and dry, and 100% of people would probably agree that this is betrayal. But as we've been discussing, a big part of this has to do with your perception. Now, understand, this is not victim blaming. This is not saying that, oh, you just felt betrayed, it's your fault. Okay. Because the reality is it's not your fault. The other side of this coin, though, which is really empowering, I want you to lean in here. If your emotional response is dependent to such a great degree on your perception, the first part of actually healing after being betrayed is recognizing the power in your ability to change what things mean, to reframe and recontextualize, and actually turn that irritant, that situation, that painful, occurrence into something positive. For a lot of you, I know you might be thinking, bullshit, Dave, like this sucks. There's no two ways about it. I'm never going to be the same. We understand that. We've been there too. I've been cheated on. I've also cheated on people that I've been with in the past. I've seen it from both angles. It sucks. But again, the important piece is when we understand that our emotional responses to any betrayal or any situation in life, really, in relationships, is dependent on our perception, how we perceive these things. The good news is you can change the script. You can change the stories you tell yourself about what that means and rise above. Because is there a possible, I'll just pose this example. Is it possible that you'll never know somebody completely 100%? Isn't trust dependent to a certain degree on an amount of faith and goodwill? Well, the reality is, in my experience, that's absolutely true. And so it's not just about finding someone who you can lock down in the room and make sure that they never look at or talk to someone else. It's more about developing yourself internally. We're going to talk about some of those ways to elevate your mindset. So number one, you're not knocked off into a downward spiral when someone does you wrong. And number two, and maybe more importantly, how you break this cycle so you can actually begin to shift your perspective and be more in alignment with people who do deserve your trust, as imperfect as they may be. So,
and I'm going to, exactly, we're going to dive more into this. Like David said, one of the things I think when we, especially with us as toxic relationship recovery experts, is talking about narcissism and, sociopathy, other personality disorders, things like that. People do have addictions. People are looking to control and manipulate. Part of them cheating, whether it's emotionally, physically, trying to get money out of people, whatever those things, is sometimes personality traits. They're doing it just for fun to try to have control over you.
Personality disorders.
Yes, personality disorders.
Yeah.
So they are looking to take advantage of you, and it's a game. It's literally a game for them.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you this, and I want you guys to let us know in the comments as well. A lot of times you can feel blindsided by this. But I'm willing to bet that more often than not, they're red flags. For those of you who've been betrayed and you've had the opportunity to kind of look back and examine the things that maybe you didn't notice at the time because you were in it, right? Have you noticed red flags? Were there signals that maybe led up to that being betrayed?
Yeah,
let us know in the comments.
I'm thinking of a client that she was in a long-term relationship, and she had been with her husband forever, and just he started working more often, being weird with his phone, not showing up. But the interesting thing is that in talking about betrayal, we're gonna talk a little bit more about this, but she found out he was cheating, and then they talked about it. They went to therapy. She forgave him. Then he went back to cheating again with someone different. And I think by the time she came to us, he had cheated 3 times. So at some point, there has to be this thing of like, when the leopard has shown their spots, you can't be surprised when they do it again. Every time. And this goes whether it's cheating, whether it's bad behavior, whether it's being lied to in other ways, whatever it is, the more we accept the behavior of someone, the more we stick around as they treat us like crap and are disrespectful towards us, the more they're going to keep doing it. Yeah. So it's about healing ourselves so that we don't get caught up in someone who is trying to manipulate and control us in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, 100%. And again, a big recurring theme of what we talk about is breaking these cycles. Okay, we're human beings. We make mistakes. None of us were born knowing or having the owner's manual to life and to love. So it's understandable, but there are ways to begin to get the knowledge and make the shifts in your personality so this stuff doesn't have to continue to happen. Because a good life and trustworthy relationships are not simply a matter of luck. And let's understand that this is a really important topic for a lot of people, because when you're betrayed like this, there are a variety of effects, long-term effects and short-term effects. I mean, when you walk into your marital bedroom and find your spouse in bed with someone else, there's shock, there's anger, there's sadness, there's that sense of loss, right? A sudden awareness of everything that you thought was real no longer is. You're confused, you're anxious, you can get depressed. Now, if you don't work on these issues, and again, we're going to give you some tips on how to switch things around here. There are long-term effects. This is a significant factor in PTSD. And again, some of the other things we talked about, difficulty trusting others, which can go beyond romantic relationships.
Which is a big one, yeah.
And again, one thing that I found personally was really kind of deep and dark were these feelings of worthlessness, low self-esteem, and this persistent fear that it was gonna keep happening. Beyond that, there are physical effects. One of the things we see all the time is when you have chronic stress, there are physiological breakdowns in the body. I mean, anyone here suffering aches and pains, tight, tense shoulders because you're carrying around a lot of stress, digestive issues, ulcers, like IBS, all that sort of thing.
Which is why it's so important to have holistic healing, because those physical effects do cause, the top 10 reasons why people die in the United States is from stress-related issues. So if you're having PTSD, if you're showing trauma responses to this event or multiple events of dealing with someone who has been cheating, then you are going to lessen your immune system. You're going to find that you're sick more often. You're not going to be able to sleep as well, concentrate as well. You're going to feel yourself even maybe getting more short with other people that aren't related to what the situation that you're dealing with. I mean, all sorts of things, increased blood pressure, which could lead to heart disease and stroke. I mean, we've had clients that are that had cancer. That cancer came out of all of this stress response.
And a lot of people don't tie the two things together. When you take, as we do, sort of a more holistic approach and not the traditional medical reductionist approach, right? You start to see these correlations, these patterns.
I see fibromyalgia. Yeah, 100% fibromyalgia has been proven to be related to stress, to trauma response. Back issues. When I was with my toxic partner, I'll never know if he was cheating or not, but when I was with him, I had more back issues than I've ever had since. And we've been not together for a very long time. It was very much related to all those psychosomatic issues that pop up from trauma and stress. I mean, they will kill you over a long term. We actually just had someone not that long ago. I don't remember. She's a member of the group. She actually had Addison's disease, which is all of like your system shutting down. I mean, and people die from this all the time. And the doctor said it was from the high levels of stress that she was dealing with this narcissistic person who was manipulating her.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but again, we like to discover and uncover the golden nuggets here, but there is a mind-body connection. I mean, research has shown that the most common emotional factor in cancer patients is long repressed anger. Now, most people, again, they don't put two and two together, but think about it. I mean, like Steph said, these emotional patterns, these habits can literally kill you. Again, the good news is that once you realize you can actually shift these patterns, change the frequency that you're sort of tuned into intellectually and especially emotionally, you can begin to change and heal. So again, breaking these cycles, no longer being a victim of not just betrayal, but the aftermath, the emotional aftermath of that is going to go a long way in boosting your immune system, literally and figuratively, physically, emotionally, mentally, and all that.
How was and we'd love to hear your comments. How was your reaction? How was your reaction when you found out about being betrayed physically, emotionally, and how did it affect future relationships? Doesn't just have to be romantic relationships, but relationships in general. I mean, I've heard people say it's affected their careers. It's affected, future family relationships, romantic friendships. I mean, everything, because now they've lost trust in everyone. So how has it affected everybody? I see that's why they call these relationships toxic. Exactly.
And how many of you have said, like in our what we call our big
losing
group,
weight? That's a big thing we see with clients is all of a sudden they're like, wait a minute, I'm losing weight. That wasn't even why I joined your program. And here they are starting to lose weight. That's a really big thing also, because when you are feeling such high levels of stress, I don't know about you, but I stress eat. So if I'm feeling high levels of stress all the time, then I am eating on things I shouldn't normally, or I wouldn't normally be eating. So we tend to gain weight. We're not getting all the micronutrients that we need. And so therefore, with all of that, that also increases health issues as well. So weight loss is part of the healing for a lot of people.
100%. And again, let's face it, if we've been betrayed and there's still part of us that says, you know what, I want that perfect loving relationship. If you haven't been able to get over that betrayal and you're carrying distrust, that baggage of distrust into the next relationship, you could find your perfect partner, Mr. Right, and you're not ready to receive them. You're hyper vigilant, and you're going to wind up scaring that person away. Okay.
So how do you reframe this and heal? I mean, that's the biggest thing, right? That's what all of you turn it in for. It's like, okay, yeah, I get it. I was cheated on. I've dealt with some terrible trauma. How do I reframe this and change this? So number one thing is to remind yourself that no matter what they have said to you, it's not your fault. Mm-hmm. They love to manipulate and are like, well, if you would given me more sex, if you would have been nicer to me. But again, it takes, in that kind of sense, like they could have communicated, they could have shared what was going on. I mean, any of those things where they're saying it's all your fault, it's not. So take that right off, take that baggage right off, and realize that is not because of you. You are not making someone cannot make someone do something like cheating. That's on them. Yeah. That's their responsibility to take.
100%. And what I sort of alluded to before was the ability to reframe, to change the meaning of these things. For example, we know that self-esteem can be damaged when you're betrayed. I was cheated on, I must not be worthy of love, and so on and so forth. You can decide, and again, this is a forward-thinking, more elevated technique that a lot of people don't take advantage of. They just assume, right, that they were cheated on. That means that they're not worthy of love, respect, and honesty. Well, if you stop and think about it and ask yourself, and again, this is such a simple concept, but really a powerful one. When shit like that happens and you notice a knee-jerk reaction, pause for a moment and ask yourself, what else could this mean? And I've been talking about this a lot, even with our inner circle clients, just an expression that I think is really empowering, which is that nothing has meaning except the meaning you give it. A lot of people feel disempowered and they feel like, oh, the world is objective out there. I don't have any influence over that. But another saying we use in the inner circle is you don't see the world as it is. You see the world as you are. Now, this isn't about bullshitting yourself or just looking at the world through rose-colored glasses. But if the end result that you're after is to feel a certain way, that's the goal. And let's face it, we all do what we do because of how we perceive doing those things is going to allow us to feel. Mm-hmm. And your goal is to feel at peace. Well, guess what? If something comes along to disturb your peace, you have the opportunity, and granted, it's not always easy, but you have the opportunity to change what that means. For example, if you get cheated on, your knee-jerk reaction might be like, oh, I'm not worth it. You could change the meaning to say, okay, I chose somebody who doesn't respect themselves enough to honor their commitments. Mm-hmm. This is an opportunity for me to shake it off, right? And begin to work on myself, honor my gut and intuition, notice and pay heed to the red flags more quickly instead of sweeping them under the carpet, right? Continue to develop my self-esteem, start to treat myself like I actually care about myself, mm-hmm. right? So that's one example. Again, reframing is very powerful. And when we feel disempowered, we're like, oh no, it is what it is. Well, guess what? Most of the time, that's not the case. Like they say, life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it, or more appropriately, perhaps how you respond.
Most of us can say that we saw the red flags, but we ignored them. We knew it was coming. We knew even maybe from the beginning that we were with someone who was not the healthiest person. And I see someone said, well, I should have known because they had, there was drug addiction going on. But again, without saying like, oh, I should have known better. If what you are used to, your norm is toxicity. If that's what love is to you, then you would find that until you do the right healing, and you will say that that's love. So you will find someone who is toxic and be like, this is the person that I need to take care of and I need to help fix, because that becomes part of it too. Like, oh, they've cheated on, and that's another one too that I've heard from so many of my girlfriends even, is like, well, I thought they cheated with other people. They weren't going to do that to me. It's a tough lesson to learn. And that's tough because we're like, it's romanticized to think that they're not going to do the things that they've told us that they've done to other people.
I can make an honest man out of them.
We're going to be the ones that save them and change them and make them into better people. Yeah. But these are not, you don't need a project. If you need a project, go volunteer at a animal shelter. There's got plenty of people that need plenty of doggies that need to be adopted.
And they'll be more appreciative. Now I want to sort of layer on to, Steph, what you were talking about, these patterns, these lenses of perception through which we, create these definitions. And again, if you have been influenced by past trauma, perhaps you were raised in a household where you couldn't trust, right? Your trust, your innocence was betrayed. Unfortunately, in our line of work, we see a lot of really awful ways that is the reality for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. These programs, these subconscious imprints are running the show. This is the software by which you process input, right? Life. Oh, this person I'm with looked at a hot girl walking by. That old program of betrayal in the past, for example, gets triggered. So in terms of practical ways to shift this, there are some cutting edge methods even within the realm of psychology. Now, in my experience, talk-based psychotherapy, where you try to move forward just by gaining conscious insights, is generally not enough to change. But things like cognitive behavioral therapy has been very powerful. There's a whole realm of modalities under the umbrella of energy psychology. EFT or tapping is one that a lot of people have heard of. EMDR, we talk about that a lot. Our favorite way, certainly my favorite way that we use with our clients in the inner circle, is called Psych-K. Literally the ability to access the subconscious mind and those unsupportive programs that say, for example, oh, I was cheated on in the past, no men can be trusted, which then give rise to your outcomes over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. This allows you to heal those. And it's particularly effective in terms of relieving chronic stress and anxiety, healing PTSD, and getting you back into a sense of balance and alignment with what your superconscious mind, what I sometimes call, your soul, has in mind for you, because you're not meant to suffer. And very often people do, just because they haven't learned how to access these programs and shift, again, the lenses through which they view the world. I want to, punctuate that statement with just a little bit of hope for you, because we've seen in our inner circle dramatic shifts in people who have been to therapy for literally months and years, even trauma therapists, with little to no results. So again, if you're feeling the chronic stress and anxiety, the anger, resentment, distrust, low self-esteem, and all these things that can come along with being betrayed, the good news is that there are powerful, effective tools which don't just address your conscious mind's like, okay, yeah, I get it. I should love myself. I should forgive and forget and blah, 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 but allow you to shift viscerally. So your basic state of thinking and feeling, the habits, what you focus on, is back to more positive instead of just the negative things that these traumas can keep you focused on.
And I'm always amazed at Psych-K, the sessions, when people have sessions with David and how it shifts. One of the things as a former health educator is the self-care piece. And this is something that's really, a really important, getting enough sleep, getting our exercise, getting on a healthy diet. Self-care is not just about, like hanging out with friends or whatever, bubble baths. Right? Yeah. It's really about making sure that you are doing activities that are going to keep you in a more positive mindset. More balanced mindset. So that way too, when things come up, it's almost like that pressure cooker where we're releasing some of the steam as it comes up. We're not ignoring it, because then again, that's something that we have to deal with at some point. But if we deal with it, we feel the emotions, we allow them to come up, and we have ways to get a little break from them through our self-care, going into nature and all the other things we said before, then we can also start to allow ourselves to heal, to really dig in.
Yeah, and let us know in the comments, particularly for those of you who have actively begun to participate in your healing. Have you done any of these things? Have you considered them? A lot of people we talk to are in therapy, and unfortunately, I'd say the majority of them are not getting quite the results they want. A lot of people find it helpful, and we truly believe that there's a time and place for that. Mm-hmm. But things like self-care, I mean, let's flip it on its head and be honest here. You've been betrayed in a relationship. Have you, from then on, neglected your self-care? Right?
I had a client of mine, and this was a little while ago. I don't know if she'll be watching, but she used to love going to the gym. It was her thing. She would every day. She would go before she went to work. She'd go to the gym, and it ended up that I'm pretty sure it was her husband. While she was gone to the gym, that's when he would cheat. He literally would have someone over to cheat on her the moment she went out the door. So of course, what did she start doing? She stopped going to the gym. She tried to make it work. She tried to understand, but now here she was gaining weight, losing herself, feeling badly about herself, then feeling more and more trying to control this other person. And she was getting sick. She was having all these health issues. So she came to me and she was like, I used to be a runner. I used to do all these things. And now I'm just all consumed with him and what he's doing and how this is affecting me. And this is what we see all the time. So this is why really, making that time for self-care and putting ourselves first is going to be really important. So how do we never get sucked into this again?
Yeah, and this is sort of to wrap up this whole topic for tonight, because it's one thing to put a Band-Aid on a boo-boo. It's another thing to learn to not run out into traffic and get screwed up in the first place.
And then also, as I always say, it's always taken out like the gangrene. So if you think about it, it's not just the boo-boo, but it's that deep inner wound that has to come out and has to be looked at in order for us to clear out any secondary infections from that first primary infection.
I don't tend to get squeamish, but that's a pretty dramatic analogy.
Hey, health educator here. I always look at it from the health perspective.
Enough. Nothing's off the table. Hey, we call it like we see it. So yeah, again, the point is, number one, you got to heal. Number two, you got to break the cycle and ensure that this never happens again, right? Mm-hmm. So as we wrap up, let's talk about some ways that you can prevent being a victim of betrayal. And like I said earlier, some people might say, oh, there's nothing you can do. People suck. They can't be trusted. Well, if that's your belief, that's going to be your reality. Mm-hmm. But again, even from our perspective, having been in toxic relationships quite a lot prior to meeting one another, mm-hmm. And even bordering on that sense of hopelessness, we found that the truth of the matter is that's not the case. And it's not just about getting lucky and finding someone that you can trust or someone who you can control, because Lord knows that would be tiresome. I didn't even consider that when I was
Mhm.
when I met Steph. But it's more about shifting to become the type of person who doesn't get into these situations in the first place. Some of them are obvious. Some of them work a little bit more on a subtle level. But there are ways that you can do this. One of the important ways to prevent being a victim of betrayal, and again, at face value, this might seem kind of obvious, is get good at boundaries. Now, boundaries, when we talk about it, it's number one, knowing what your wants and needs are. Right. So there is that prerequisite of getting clear on what actually matters to you, what are non-negotiables, deal breakers, right?
Mhm.
Versus preferences, right? But when people talk about boundaries, it's not just creating them, it's actually communicating them. So if
And not just communicating, I would say it's almost like living it. I mean, there have been things like, and this is even just between us, that if you were going to cheat or if you were going to curse me out or treat me badly, would I stick around for that?
this is clearly established boundaries.
But I never
non-negotiables.
had to say that because I am secure and comfortable in who I am. And those kinds of things are what's so important is when you are coming from a place of being empowered, the type of people that are going to be attracted to that are going to appreciate and like the fact that you're empowered. They're not going to try to see, because this is what we see also always in the narcissist, check and see what area of the boundaries they can get into. Like, if I do this, what are their reactions going to be? If I talk to this girl, what's their reaction going to be? So they're looking for that little place in the electric fence that they can get through.
Yeah. So in a sense, you're absolutely right. It's even before communicating the boundaries, it's healing to a level where you actually carry yourself differently.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is one of those more subtle things, but that sense of empowerment from healing your self-esteem, no longer doubting your worth or settling for less than you truly deserve.
Seeing the red flags and doing something about it instead of thinking that they're waving you into the relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's another thing.
Mm-hmm.
Healing yourself and developing what I call all the time emotional self-reliance is going to ensure that you no longer settle for someone who's going to walk all over you, right? When you're entering into a relationship with a sense of neediness, you're going to consciously or unconsciously ignore those red flags.
Mm-hmm.
So again, we're starting to see a common theme here, right? Do the work to heal your heart, heal your self-esteem and elevate that, and you'll become more immune to it. But when you start seeing red flags, don't ignore them. All right. Another big one, and as you get better and more clear on who you are and what you deserve, this will become more clear to you. But trust your gut. Has anyone watching been in a situation where they have a sense of like, oh, something stinks, something doesn't seem right, and you're like, nah, I must just be imagining things.
Almost anything wrong that's ever happened to me, I've always had a bad feeling about it ahead of time, and I've ignored it. Big things, and lifelong things that I ignored because of the fact that I didn't trust myself. I didn't want to believe it, and I didn't want to do anything about it. And I don't know if that's anything for you, but like maybe you had that intuition, but then there's that part of you that's like, if that's real, then I have to take action on it.
I don't want to upset the apple cart.
Yeah, and then I'm going to be sad. It's going to be painful. But if I pretend it's not there, then I don't have to deal with it. It's like,
maybe it'll go away.
Blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, when you do start to heal, and it's very important to say that you not only have your intuition, but you are not afraid to act on it, even if it feels uncomfortable. Because you know that in the long term, it's going to be way more uncomfortable than if you just do something about it now.
Yeah. And again, to wrap up, sort of what we've noticed here, the common theme is self-esteem. Mm-hmm. And again, sometimes we would love to say, you know what, I wish we could just unequivocally trust people. I wish life was easy. I wish I didn't have moments of self-doubt. But the reality of life is that it's going to throw you challenges commensurate with your level of awareness. And very often the painful things that arise have lessons to teach you. So an important common thread in all the work we do and what we've seen in ourselves in times past and with countless hundreds of clients we work with is that self-esteem is central to this. And again, it may not seem like there's a direct correlation between self-esteem and your ability to avoid people who are going to betray you, but there absolutely is. I'll speak from the woo-woo perspective because that tends to be my thing, but there's a vibe, okay? Narcissists very often try to charm and win over strong, confident women because of their inferiority complex and the desire to bag that trophy game, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But in the long run, when you develop self-esteem, unshakable confidence, and knowing what you are worthy and deserving of, to the point where you're happy being single and you don't care how long you have to wait to find the right person. Okay. You will carry yourself in a different way. And what we found time and again, personally, and again, with clients who make this important shift as well, is that with a heightened level of self-esteem, you will begin to repel people who otherwise would have taken advantage of your weakness, and begin to attract people in your life who are not only more on the same level as you, but they actually appreciate that about you. And remember, self-esteem is not swinging the pendulum from self-loathing to arrogance. Okay. It's more of a balance. It's being proud of yourself and who you are, and knowing that you're worthy and deserving, and also experiencing the humility that comes with gratitude. And very often, gratitude comes freely when you turn this past pain into a lesson, get the lesson, and know that, oh, thank God I never have to deal with that again.
So on that note, for those of you who are watching who have been betrayed, again, whether it's cheated on, stolen from, your trust broken in some way, shape, or form, manipulated, what have you learned about yourself because of this? Because it's not in spite of. You're here, and all the experiences are because of those experiences, not in spite of those experiences. So what have you learned about yourself, and what might you do differently for the future? And I'd love to see your responses in the comments, because, you know, when we come from a mindset, we come from a place of empowerment, then we come from a place of, like, not I messed up, I screwed up, things were bad, and or I've been, you know, victimized or whatever. It's what can I learn and what can I do differently? So big question for you to think about is, what did you learn about yourself, and how will you move forward differently from now on?
100%. And look, we hope this has been valuable for you. These are lessons and insights based on our own personal experience. You can take what you've learned tonight and begin to implement some of these things, right? Acknowledging the situation, honest self-examination and discovery, begin to reframe, right? Shift what things mean, take steps like self-care, talk to your therapist, right? Maybe find a therapist who does EMDR. I've heard from some people that's effective. Again, what we love and prefer is actually a safer, faster, more effective, and more long-lasting method of change. But again, you can take the things that you've learned tonight and put them into play immediately. For those of you who feel like you need some additional support, guidance, and actual effective tools to accelerate the process, maybe you've tried all these things before and you just haven't quite made the progress in the time frame that you want. You realize you don't have more time to waste. Go ahead and comment chat in the comments. We'll have a wrap session, you know, just talk about what it might be like for you to actually accelerate your progress with real professional support, whether that means working with us personally or not. So that can be helpful.
You can comment, chat. You can also send us a private message. We might not be able to get back to you right away, but definitely send us a private message as well. Sometimes that's easier with different social medias, is to send us a direct private message.
100%.
So on that note, was that helpful to everyone? I'd love to hear any of your aha moments or any of your comments that you have. And again, if you're watching this as a replay, please make sure to still comment. Again, we are here and available to you. This is something we're very passionate about, is to help people heal. I mean, the biggest thing is that we do, and literally what we do is we help you rediscover who you are so you can create your best life, whether you're in a relationship or not. And that, to me, is the real power.
That's freedom.
So no matter what you've experienced in the past, no matter where you've been, no matter what you've seen, then I want you to have in your mind, I can create the life that I want, not the life that I've had before. I can create something new. I can create something different, no matter what I've experienced, no matter what I've done. You watching right now can create it. It's just that we don't always know exactly what to do. So go through the guides, go through our past lives. If you need more support, like David said, comment the word chat or send us a private message. We are here to help you achieve those big goals. And thank you, as always, for tuning in with us on Thursdays. We love spending time with you and giving you great content to help you heal.
100%. And again, we are not special. We're simply sharing what's worked for us. And I'll just close by saying you are probably a lot closer to the freedom, joy, and peace of mind you desire than you even realize. You just need the right guidance, support, and tools to get the leverage. So again, comment, chat if this kind of lands with you, and we will talk soon.
And never forget, you are way stronger than you realize. Bye, everybody.
Bye now.